Hello everyone, it's Livia here, aka Story Minded, and I'm going to make the next video for my kind of university second year assignment series, just where I can sort of document some of my assignments, and hopefully it'll be helpful for anyone who's thinking about doing a English or creative writing degree, or English with creative writing degree. So this one is for writing for performance, assignment 1. It was a find in form module, similar to my find in form fiction, except this one had the emphasis on writing that is specific to performance. So technically these were 2 assignments, but it was combined into one portfolio, although we've recently had a message to say that the grades we've got, they now have to be split, because apparently there was some sort of issue with the submission box. So we sort of submitted it as one giant portfolio, but the percentages work out differently, so they have to rectify that, and I don't really know what's going to happen. Hopefully I'll still be able to get my first overall, because I was really proud of that. I managed to get a first on my portfolio, so I'm a bit like, okay then, I'll wait and see what happens with that. But it was a poetry portfolio, and then we had the choice between either writing a 5-page short story or a monologue or duologue. But obviously this module took place in teaching block 2, and because of Corona and everything that's going on in the world at the moment, we didn't get to learn about the monologues or duologues because we ran out of time, and there was an opportunity to do it online, but by then I'd already had my portfolio written and I was editing it, and I was like, I'm not going to look into monologues or duologues because I already have my 5-page short story. So the 3 poems that were spoken word, specifically designed for spoken word poetry and performing it, was Apple of an Eye, which is a poem I wrote about my dad. I've mentioned sort of on my channel before that when I was around 6 or 7 years old, my dad was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, and he passed away from a heart attack when I was 11. So Apple of an Eye was inspired by a book that my sister wrote, my older sister wrote, that kind of documented my my early years, because where I was born premature, I was in the hospital for a lot of the time, however many months at the beginning of my life, apparently. So she wrote in that book, and I was trying to find a specific quote because I remember something in my brain was saying that she mentioned how I was the apple of my dad's eye, and obviously that's that kind of I don't think the right word is colloquial. I can't think of the right word, but it's one of those idiom. Is it an idiom? It's one of those phrases that kind of, not a proverb, but it's one of those phrases that's well known within a culture, like apple of an eye. And then I remembered it wasn't actually in that book, and it was in the memory book. It was a letter that my sister wrote for my dad when he passed away. She wrote a letter to him, and within that she mentioned how I was the apple of his eye, but he never treated them, my older half siblings, any differently. So it was that kind of quote that really inspired me to engage with this idea, and then this whole sort of poem came to me, this idea of apple imagery that kind of goes throughout, and I reference some of the Greek myths that contain apples, and sort of this bargaining thing, bargaining, haggling, how the first line is how many apples does it take to buy back a human life, I think is what ended up being the final version of it. I can't remember exactly because it's been a while since I wrote it. So that was Apple of an Eye. I also wrote 2 other poems, The Mermaid of Fiji, which I was really proud of. The Mermaid of Fiji is about, if any of you know about P.T. Barnum, or the movie The Greatest Showman, which is based on or loosely based on P.T. Barnum's life. The whole idea of oddities, the Fiji mermaids, Fiji mermaids were quite a popular oddity throughout the Victorian era, and through that kind of subculture of anonymous. I can't say the word, oddities, and the poem is written from like a kind of stream of consciousness, like it's written from the mermaid's point of view, this like corpse, and it was a really interesting poem to write, and it contains other voices of like her ringmaster and the like some of the disgruntled pub members who are there listening to like the ringmaster try to like buy like trying to get their money to come and watch a show. So that was what the Mermaid of Fiji was about. And then the last poem was called Make Me Up, which was originally called Five Reasons Why I Hate Makeup, and then I transformed it into a much stronger poem called Make Me Up, and it's basically this idea that it kind of looks at like the societal expectation for how women should wear makeup, which I don't personally agree with. Like, if people wear makeup, that's fine, it's their choice, but makeup is for anyone, regardless of gender and all that stuff, because people should be able to express themselves however they feel comfortable to express themselves. And I kind of just went on a bit of an exploration of that, and sort of like how I feel that that's not what's important to me, and how writing is what makes me up, and how writing makes me feel good about myself and my identity and all that sort of stuff. So I really enjoyed writing that poem. That poem was fun as well. And then the 5-page short story was called Wishing Well, and I had this idea to write this story. Like, I like to explore in my writing, obviously, parental bereavement, especially concerning dads, because that's what I've been through, but I've often found that I can't write from the first person perspective because it just always feels so inauthentic and fake. It's like really difficult to write about grief, and if anyone's ever gone through that and you try to use writing as like a cathartic release, I can completely appreciate why it's so hard to do, because even though you've lived that experience, when you try to put yourself there and you try to write about it, it just doesn't give it justice to how you actually feel. So I wrote a story called Wishing Well about this little girl called Belle who loves fairy tales, and her dad was a lighthouse keeper. And she kind of sees this like shadow man or shadow figure that's around. And her mum tells her this story about this wishing well that it will grant any wish. And Belle thinks, oh, if I go to the wishing well, I could wish for my dad to come back to life. So she goes to this little wishing well, which is near the beach where her dad's lighthouse is. And she sees like a figure wave into her towards the end of the story, like sees this figure wave into her, and she runs and she's like banging on the door and she's begging and she's like, please, like, I haven't seen you in so long, like, because she thinks it's her dad who's been brought back, but it isn't. It's I think his name, did I call him Samuel? It's the new lighthouse keeper who knew her dad and knows Belle and kind of chats to her, and he lost his wife, and he kind of gives her the advice that he still sees his wife everywhere, and it's normal to see that. It's normal to see her everywhere. So when she first passed away, like, I saw her everywhere. And then he kind of explains to her how he remembers her through different things within nature. And then Belle realises that it's at the lighthouse and watching the waves and the ships that he used to protect, and like how she can still connect with her dad through that way. So I thought it was a really lovely different idea for a short story, and it was interesting trying to write it specifically for performance and thinking about like the sentence structure. And originally I had way too many Disney references, so for all my creative pieces I went for like tutorials, like for feedback, and my lecturer was really good at helping me like get the best out of my writing. And like he said for that one, like he said it was a really strong story even for a first draft. It's just that cut all the Disney references out. If I was going to allude to fairy tales, like try and stick to the more sort of traditional fairy tales, and I agreed with that because obviously Disney unfortunately has become a cliche, and I was like, yeah, I was just trying to think of different ways to show that Belle loves fairy tales, and that kind of impact the narrator. It kind of like feeds into the narrator's viewpoint of how she views the world. So that's kind of what I did for my assignment one, the 3 poems, and then the 5-page short story. Anyway, if anyone's watched this, thank you, and as always, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy to offer any advice on assignments or any questions relating to university. Thank you. Bye.